Well, good day, everybody. It's the 13th of April, 2025. It is exactly 7:30 in the morning, and temperature is not bad. It's about, I think it's about 6 degrees. It's supposed to be warm today, so maybe we're going to get into a trend where we're going to have a lot of good weather. And I was just walking by this area, and I was seeing some of these cars. Now, look at this. I am pretty sure this is a Chinese car, electric vehicle. But you know, this looks, I don't know, I was thinking that means Honda, but it doesn't mean Honda. And then you look in the back, I don't know, is that Japanese? I think it's probably a Chinese vehicle. This one definitely looks like a Chinese vehicle. Well, very classy, very nice looking, not electric vehicle. And name like Dongfeng, must be Chinese. And I don't know, a lot of you in America, you may not, probably don't get any Chinese vehicles, but if you look at this, look at how do you open up these doors? Anyway, I'm just showing you that they're very nice vehicles, very well made, and unfortunately for people in America, these things are putting American cars to shame. Much less expensive, far more features, and very, durable. Very solid. I don't know about gas mileage, so that's the only thing I don't really know much about, but otherwise everything is pretty much better. I think the cars will last much longer than American cars. So anyway, I'm just saying. So Sunday morning, a lot of time, I don't know, the weather's not so bad, so you would think that it's very I don't know how to say this, but I remember at least a year ago maybe, and I don't know, there was a restaurant. It's like an all-night sort of a place, and you would find people. It's like on I don't know if it was like Sundays or if it was Saturday mornings, and like even this time in the morning or 8 o'clock, it's like people that were partying all night and standing outside. It looks sort of like a fun, maybe working types peoples and all that, but a lot of time you see people. Matter of fact, here's some garbage. You guys want to see? KFC stuff. It's Sunday. People haven't cleaned it up. This is probably owned by somebody, so there's a few items of trash inside of here. So weird that I show this to you because Belarus is definitely cleaner than most all places in the West. But you see some places here, and it's probably like garbage been sitting there for a little while. So things are not perfect here either. This is kind of in a back alleyway, as you see. So on the main roads, of course, everything is cleaned up. A lot of people. It's not cheap having to pay all these people to go around and clean things up. Look at this. Here's some old building. Makes you wonder what is in there. Some sort of a storage place or whatever. Interesting. I don't know. I like these kind of places. It's just, I don't know why. Okay. And we want to get into news, don't we? Okay. Being Sunday, not that much news is ever really put out. And the same old things are going all the time. And I will talk about, some of the things that Trump said. What's more important are the things that Lavrov said. There was a forum. So I'll get into that in a minute here. But I was mentioning yesterday in the video that the UK is giving more than $21 billion to Ukraine over I don't know what period of time, but it is, at least in this year alone, they're giving them an extra $5 billion. I think they've already given $2 billion, so that will be $7 billion for this year alone. And when you ask the question, well, are they giving it to Ukraine? And feeling the odds that Ukraine is definitely not going to win this war, maybe they will salvage a lot of the country. Maybe the Nazis will still be able to control the western part. What's this? Here's another, maybe the same company, Chinese car. I think I went by here before, maybe showed the same car even. But I'm just wondering, with all this money that they're dumping into Ukraine, hedging their bets, believing that they're going to be winning and they're going to get a good return on their money. And the whole thing about Ukraine is nothing but like a big money thing. And it's not necessarily that they're investing and expect to get a lot out. What they're actually doing, as you all know this, it's the war itself. Julian Assange says that, and a lot of people said that. It's to keep the wars going, because that's where the money is actually made, right there, is to keep the wars going and the military industrial complex, and they give big generous donations to the politicians, so the politicians will easily write off this money to keep this war going. And that's the whole thing about this anyway, and it normally always is. If you want to stay in office, look at Lindsey Graham. Actually, in an indirect way, Barack Obama, you know, you have to feather the military industrial complex. And Barack Obama, in a sense, normally you would call him the banker's president, because his chief donors were all the big banks. You got J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, of course. Goldman Sachs, maybe that's what, some sort of an investment firm. They're involved in every single meeting that the government ever makes. They're always there. You have somebody from Goldman Sachs there. So that's what that's all about. It's all about the money, 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 money. Just like Justin Bieber said the other day. Somebody was filming Justin Bieber, and maybe it was even a paparazzi, but he was talking to the paparazzis, and he was really pissed off. And I would imagine that when you think about, like, even people like Mel Gibson or anything like that, I mean, how would you like it? Anytime you go anywhere, I don't know, apparently Trump likes it, but you know, there's going to be somebody. You walk out of someplace, everywhere you go, there's cameras and cameras and cameras. No privacy whatsoever. I would definitely hate that. So you can take that fame and put it where the sun doesn't shine. I'd just rather be who I am. So I don't really want that. You know, so you got to pay a whole bunch of money, like Mark Zuckerberg, buy many, many acres, so you can have some seclusion in someplace. I don't know. Huge, huge amounts of money, these people. Okay. Norway. Did I talk about Norway? Brussels, I said also yesterday, that are giving, it's, you know, how do I say this? Do I say Ukraine or do I say Zelensky? It's normally Zelensky. Zelensky. Look at all these people. Always curious about seeing me walking around here like this. So it's waiting for the shop to open up. I don't really like people staring at me. I guess I would never like to be Justin Bieber or anybody, you know, having people Googling, or oogling. I guess it's called oogling. Sorry, Google. Oogling at me. You know, you don't even have a camera. Well, actually, I'll tell you what. If you had a lot of these people walking through here, Justin Bieber, I tell you what, 95% of the people would not even recognize him. You know, there's even a good chance a lot of people wouldn't even recognize Mel Gibson. So that's fine. Okay, all this money going to Ukraine, 1.7 billion. And I just look at this as a gift, a free gift, because they're not going to pay it back. So 5 billion. So what was this? No, that meant, did I say the UK? Well, the UK is given the 20 billion, and it's 5 billion, and it's Norway that has already given them, what is it? It's an additional 5 billion, makes it 7 billion for this year alone from Norway. Wow. And starting yesterday, you know, you talk about these tariffs wars. China just up there is up to 125%. So Donald Trump is still ahead of them. So if the total of the tariffs on American products coming to China is 125%, I believe Donald Trump has his at 145%. How is it that it's unfair and that China is ripping off the United States? That doesn't make any sense, you know? So I think Trump is fidgeting a little bit with the numbers, basically trying to say that the number 125 is bigger than the number 145. You know it? Oh, God. Oh, the poor United States. But I'll tell you what, it was the United States actually that started pushing all of this sort of thing in the past anyway. And there's other deals being made, you know, different compensations from other areas. Trump doesn't want to mention all that, you know. And so, anyway, it makes you wonder whatever happened afterwards. Maybe the deals actually rectified themselves, and maybe they were ripping off the United States. But, you know, you got to be a little bit open-minded, and you just can't believe verbatim of what these people are saying, Donald Trump or anyone. These people, there's a lot of liar politicians. And as I said, I like it much better being over here in Belarus, maybe even Russia to a large extent. These people are far, far more honest. Over here, the politicians, and I'm talking about politicians, sure there are dishonest Belarusians. I could tell you about the guy, you know, when we were doing our apartment, he's involved with a bunch of, you know, all shady people, and they're out to, you know, there's people, you know, maybe making deals with each other, and, you know, say, well, here, I'll cut you in on this. It happens over here too. And when the government finds out the stuff, and if they have some means to do something, they do here. That's the difference between here and places over in the West. They just kind of ignore it over there much more readily. So look at this, an American car. I saw it, you know, from back. It was kind of nice. Maybe I don't have to show it to you guys. Most of you are in the States. You already know what American cars are looking like. And yes, I've been over there kind of before. Trying to, I don't know, it's just too noisy out there. Trying to walk in some place, you know, more interesting for you guys. Nice yellow building there. Stands out. Theater over that way. Okay, in a diplomatic forum yesterday, I was mentioning this at the start of this video. There was a, it's I guess in Turkey, and there was a lot of foreign ministers there, and everybody was talking about Lavrov from Russia because he's the rock star, and the place was completely crowded, and somebody wrote some note that, oh yeah, Russia is isolated. So yeah. And everybody wanted to listen to Lavrov. Everybody wants to ask questions. And he definitely is a rock star. He's a very good diplomat. They have very good diplomats in a lot of the countries that are supposed to be the evil countries. Even Iran, you know, the diplomat there, the foreign minister, is very, very, very good and very well liked in countries that are open-minded. And I think Witkoff of the United States is starting to actually really like him too. Look at this, an old Soviet thing for a garbage can still sitting there. Wow. But yes, I think he's actually admiring him because apparently they had a few words and they just had some greetings, but of course the negotiations supposedly between Iran and the United States are, you know, happening separate. You know, somebody shuttling back, what do they call it, shuttle diplomacy, going back from one room to the next, you know, say, oh, this and that. Makes you really wonder. I tell you what, I don't understand why this stuff has to take that long. You know, and Donald Trump, before he got into office, he was talking about, oh, how easy it is, I'll get you a deal in 24 hours and all that. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not that difficult to make things fairly quick. I'm not talking about 24 hours, but in the case of Iran and the United States, you would think that they already know all the main issues, all of the standing points, you know. Everybody is announcing this stuff in public, Iran and the United States, you know. And the United States, we all know, there's a big fantasy world. It's nothing but a big fantasy, all pushed by Israel. And Iran's got to have a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks. And everybody knows that that's a big lie. Trump knows it's a big lie. So I don't really understand why Trump is dinking around like this and saying, well, we got to stop them from having a nuclear weapon or stop their nuclear program. And obviously, Trump, or maybe you could say Israel, you know, it's all being controlled by Israel. It's obvious, very, very obvious. And apparently, you know, I think the only reason why Trump is actually putting up with this is, like I say, this is my theory, is that he's beholden to Israel for becoming the president of the United States, because you got all the deep state powers, all the establishment, and none of them wanted Trump, none of them at all. The only thing that you can see where Trump has a positive image is Israel itself. So it kind of makes you really wonder who is the one that put Trump in there, especially when Tulsi Gabbard came out, and everybody knows that it's very easy to cheat on the voting machines in the United States. And you know, Sheldon Adelson doesn't have enough money. None of these people, even pooled together, they don't have enough money to go after the deep state. You're talking about the CIA, and the Democrats are far wealthier. You know, that was even including like Jeff Bezos. He's kind of was shying away, you know, a little bit, but it's like, you know, he put a lot of money into the Democrats, and it was like a big deal. He put $1 million into Donald Trump. Well, what's a friggin' $1 million when you have these $1 billion election campaigns, $1 million is a drop in the bucket. I mean, they've had $1 billion campaign starting with Obama back then, before even that Trump time. So it's a huge amount of money, and it's not even just only the money. So, it's the cheat. Look at that. Look at that with Joe Biden. Everybody knows the guy is totally incompetent. They knew he was incompetent before he was even elected, and it still happened. I don't know. So, like I said, my theory is, and I think it's a very, very good one, to me, it's undeniable. We will never hear about it. Israel is incredibly powerful. They power with information. They own media corporations all over. Why is it strange that they're mostly, all of them are Jewish? I mean, come on, And it's not that that being Jewish has much to do with Israel, because the power of Israel, I don't think, has very much to do with Judaism ever, anyway. These are people that have a lot of control in business. A lot of them are Jewish, of course, and a lot of them, even if they don't like Israel, a lot of Jews don't like Israel at all. They have to see, well, this is our team, and we kind of have to go along with this anyway. Strange bedfellows in politics. And I think, I'm kind of grateful for a lot of you people that watch this, even though the people that subscribe and to watch my channel, they're not that very many, but you guys definitely understand how the world works much better than a lot of other people that are watching a lot of these other videos. And what my contribution to this is, I've known a lot of these politicians. I've talked to a lot of them, and it's strange because that like Colonel Douglas McGregor and Scott Ritter, they've talked to these people, and a lot of these CIA people, and a lot of them, they don't even really talk about this. Or at some points in time, at least back in the past, a lot of them will tell me things they did. I was just a friggin' corporal at the time, and mostly a driver, and we coordinated, well, this is my military times when I met a lot of these politicians, coordinated their hotel rooms, where they're gonna stay, either military accommodations or on the economy. A lot of people running for presidents. I'm even talking about people from foreign countries. We're talking about like 2 presidents of Germany. I almost even got to meet the Chancellor of Germany, some ministers of defense, the commander-in-chief, I'll show you guys even some pictures and stuff like that as time goes by, autographed photographs from people, and letters of thank you and all that from 4-star generals and all that sort of thing. And we were, anyway, but you get to talk a lot with people, and some things that maybe they shouldn't say, and I definitely wouldn't say who these people are, and even if this was in the 1980s, but and as you reflect and you watch how politics works, and I'll tell you what, it's probably been going like this for over 100 years, and you read a lot of even literature. It's like reading Sherlock Holmes. They're talking about how he's going to solve these cases and all this stuff, and they go, Sherlock Holmes got a lot of his so-called evidence and facts from the newspapers, which even back then were lies too, and so many people like the Hearsts and all that, we're talking in 1800s, they even come up with these phrases and say the truth is what we tell you it is. So it's not like the truth is the truth. They make up a truth, and it was even happening back in the 1800s. They just make a lot of stuff up, what they want you to believe, so that your opinion will be swayed in a certain way, and then they can get you to put on a uniform, grab a gun, and go kill some people based on lies. And it was like that back then, and it's like that right now. It's just like Iran's nuclear weapons program, or the invisible soldiers of the North Koreans that are fighting on the side of Russia that we've never seen before. And and I think, who was it? The Economist in a newspaper. And it's very strange. You get some rare times when these people actually come right out and tell the truth. Maybe it's just, it slips by, I don't know. And they said that there's no evidence of China being involved in this thing. Anyway, and Zelensky was trying to push all this. And there's even less evidence that North Korea has any soldiers there. Sure, there's an alliance between Russia and North Korea, but I remember even Lukashenko said that it was very ridiculous to talk about North Korean soldiers being there. And he said they won't even let Belarus be involved in this conflict. And he's talking about Russia. Russia will not let Belarus get involved in this conflict. And obviously, Lukashenko, leader of Belarus, he hates war more than anything. And as I've said before, he's probably the single person in all of Europe, at least, that should get the Nobel Peace Prize. He is. He even talks about pollution and things, and how bad war is for the environment, and nobody ever talks about that. So he's the most probably anti-war leader in all of Europe by far, and I'm sure he doesn't want to get involved in this thing anyway. And he even said it himself, that he thinks that maybe there's a chance that it could have been avoided. A lot of that, of course, lies on the Ukrainian side, and you got the Western powers, particularly Britain, of course, pushing Ukraine, wanting that war. And obviously they want to see the Ukrainians die. How many times have I said that? They want to see Russians, Ukraine, they want to see all Slavic peoples die. I don't even understand it fully myself. And you guys keep thinking, that sounds ridiculous. And it does sound ridiculous, but why is it that they really do want to see Slavic peoples die? And a lot of this it even goes back to, say, Adolf Hitler, or like I said, people have written this stuff, Manifest Destiny. They want the territory, and they want to move in, Lebensraum. That was the word that Hitler used. And, they want to take over more and more territory. They think territory is power, but it's a lot more difficult. Russia has been able to have a huge area, and they've been able to govern with that. But a lot of times, you get little disturbances here and there, different ethnic groups. It was very difficult. Tito in Yugoslavia, but he was able to hold things together. After Tito was gone, it all fell apart, and everybody's, Serbia and Kosovo and all these things started splitting apart. And of course, the United States helped very much in that area as well. The United States, their goal is to set up a lot of puppet states and control all that and get resources, blah, 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 blah. But another thing that Lavrov said in this meeting, and of course he keeps repeating a lot of this stuff, maybe saying it in different ways, is that Russia is not about territory. They're not about territories at all. It is about maybe the people that have these territories. And he was mentioning, you're talking about these areas that Russia is, so to speak, occupying, or the new territories that Russia has. And it's these people, they have lived there for, he said, thousands of years. And maybe we can get to Gaza in a minute too. But the United States, well, just say the West in general, they really don't care about these people at all. They want resources. They want to find some ways to make money and power, or just two opposite sides of the same coin, and that's what they want, money and power. And people don't matter at all, not even the American people, not even their own people. And now Israel is even the same way. When you look at what happened on this October 7th, what do they call that? The Hannibal Directorate, or Hannibal Doctrine. They will kill Israelis purposefully just to make sure that they don't become hostages of the Palestinians or the Hamas at that time. It's very strange. And a lot of people, that's taboo to talk about. Even people that are against what Israel is doing, they don't even mention the fact that Israel actually killed those people on purpose. Only Max Blumenthal, who's Jewish, by the way, he comes out and he was saying, and there's so many witnesses and so many testimonies of people that were there, Israelis that were there, saying that Israelis were killing the Israelis. That's bad to say that. And then Israel has put a fine. If you're an Israeli and you mention that, you have to pay a big fine. You are not allowed to talk to the press. You're not allowed to mention that Israel, what you saw. And that's the truth. But this is stuff that nobody's really talking about anymore. This was Max Blumenthal mostly putting that out. And he went and he interviewed people that were there. And you even had Israelis, even before that happened, they're saying, they told their daughters and things to get out of there, There's just way too much evidence, and it's probably all staged. And think about even what's going on right now in Gaza. Israel is going around bombing and purposefully killing children. The children are their main enemies. It is the main food that they want to kill. Because, and then of course, partly what they're doing is they're incentivizing people that maybe are old enough, are just about old enough, or will be at some point in time old enough to also pick up a gun and to go against Israel. And Israel knows none of these people will ever be powerful enough, singly or even in collective groups, because they got the United States behind them to give them all of the bombs and all the weapons, including white phosphorus, banned weapons, lots of banned weapons, and the most powerful bombs, on the planet, to bomb these people and to kill them. And I was even, just before Donald Trump, it makes you wonder, well, what the heck? Why would the United States be wanting to do this? And now Donald Trump says, well, he thinks they're going to get Gaza maybe as a gift or whatever. Benjamin Netanyahu acting like he's in favor of that. There's some kind of a tricky stuff going on here. What the heck is going on here? None of this stuff makes any sense. The only thing that makes sense is the ethnic cleansing, and ethnic cleansing by way of genocide if they have to do it. The whole thing is get those people off of there, take over that, because God gave them that territory. I mean, we all read that. We saw the contract. God signed down at the very bottom and said this land all belongs to Israel. And, notwithstanding the fact that the Palestinians, they're the descendants of Jesus. A lot of the stuff, even how they construe the Bible a lot of the time, is just, it's disgusting. It's disgusting anyway. And then they say, oh, Jesus was a Jew. But Jesus wasn't a Jew. It seems to me that Jesus was the first Christian. Now, where do I come up with some kind of an idea like that? Judaism is a religion. It's not a nationality. Maybe back in the old days, they had a place called Judea. And Judea, strangely enough, I think that's like the northern Gaza area, I believe, or parts of Lebanon and all that. It's really strange that they got different areas and all that. I don't really know. It's a very strange thing. There wasn't very many of these either. You can talk about Hebrews and Khazans and all of these different types of people. And obviously most of those people that came to Israel, they all came from Eastern Europe anyway. It's kind of strange that they don't look like the people that lived in that area. They don't look like Egyptians or Palestinians. Why do actually they do. A lot of them do. You know why? Because they've been there for so long, and a lot of them, there's been it's very much like when you talk about the Ukrainians. Like I mentioned this guy that went there into some kind of a laboratory, and he wanted, because he's the master race. We're the Ukrainians. We're the master race. May as well call themselves God's chosen people. Well, they don't believe in God, so you can't say that. Maybe the exceptional people. Well, the master race. They're the master race. And he had his genetics mapped, and it turns out he had very little Ukrainian in him, and he was just like an Azov guy or all that, very much like Zelensky or any of them. And they're all very, very, very much, because they've been there a couple thousands of years, and a lot of transfer of, this person marries that one and all that sort of a deal. And I don't know what. And if you go to biology class, you'll find out anyway that they'll say, maybe the people whose genetics are actually mixed, if you know how genetics works and the phenotype and the genotype and how your genes are turned on and all that, that maybe it's actually, for a large part of them, better when you have different ethnicities mixed, because then you carry both different types of genes, and a lot of people say that your genes are turned on by the environment, and when you have more different genes, that it's a better ability. I don't know if this is talking about in the long term, a better ability for survivability, and in effect, you could even say, you're superior when you're mixed. So anyway, separating everybody, I don't know. And I've heard a lot of this stuff. That's why I'm not against. I'm not. How do I say that? Maybe let me word it a different way. I'm not for this racism kind of stuff, and it doesn't mean I'm for this diversity, artificial crap, put out by the government and the Black Lives Matter and all that sort of a crap, where more black people died from Black Lives Matter than if you didn't have Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's just too much fake stuff. You'd have to sit here and talk for hours and hours and try to say how none of this stuff makes any sense. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. It's Sunday. I'll have probably too long of a video. Maybe like yesterday, what is it? I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to upload. And anyway, I was talking about Lavrov and in this meeting, and everybody was listeing to him, and I saying a lot of the similar things to what he is saying and a lot of people who think rationally, and it's like they're not for territories, but they're there to protect people. Russia has always stood for that, and the United States in general, mostly, Trump obviously, is like that. They're out for the resources, and I'm not just talking about the rare earth minerals from Ukraine and things like that. He's out for tourism, in Gaza. He wants to make it the Riviera of the Middle East. Just kick those people out of there, and it's very sad, then that Trump would be talking like this. You really want to find or have some sort of a president, or find these leaders that are actually for people, for their countries, against fighting. And then you see he's completely different when it goes to the Middle East, as when he comes like, oh, stop the killing, that all these people, they're dying, there's thousands every week dying, which is true. And he's against that, but not so much Israel. Why doesn't he mention the fact that Israel is killing? I mean, you see it every single day. Dead children's, like, I don't know what news you guys are getting, and it's really, when you see this stuff, it's terrible. Children with their faces burned off, they're still alive and sitting there, squirming in pain, blood all over, their skin burned off of them, from Israel bombing them. And we're all, collectively speaking, as a world community, turning our heads. It's terrible. And then where was this huge rally? Oh, Bangladesh. You ever heard about that place? You don't hear that much about it, but Bangladesh, and tens of thousands of people rallying in support of Palestine, Palestinian flags all over the place. And I don't know. And then they call this thing democracy. What about global democracy? And most people, I'm not talking about elites. Most people are against, because it could happen to you. Well, what happened if they look at you as something, somebody wants to move in, say Belarus, and it's very, very likely somebody wants to move in here and take over and push all the Belarusians out, And it's completely different when you talk about Ukraine, because it's the ideology they're trying to push this ideology there. So as long as you can be seen as a second-class citizen, maybe because you live in an area that was at one point in time part of Russia, so therefore you people are all Russians more than all the rest of us, and Russians are species. So we will let you live as long as you denounce the Russian language, you hate everything Russian, you hate the culture, and you embrace that you are Ukrainian, or that you want to be. You're not Ukrainian, but you want to be, and you will bow down and get on your knees, and you will love the Ukraine, which never was a country ever, and it was a small region filled, unfortunately, with a bunch of nationalists, and which in effect is nothing but Nazism. We are the superior people. Jesus was a Ukrainian. We built the pyramids of Egypt. We dug the Black Sea with our bare hands, the entire Black Sea, bare hands in ancient times. And all kinds of other lies on lies on lies on lies on lies. And then I'll tell you what, like I've said before, they take little children and they start, maybe before they're even 5 years old, in preschool, and they're feeding them this stuff. And these people say, well, it must be true. I've heard about this my entire life from all kinds of different sources, so it must be true. We are the superior people, and we did all of these things. And Jesus was a Ukrainian. Santa Claus even was a Ukrainian. On and on and on. This stuff should be making everybody sick. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people do wake up eventually. Maybe they don't. I don't know. What is this here? What kind of I don't know if it's a Tesla? Electric car of some sort. I don't know. They have this similar kind of things like I showed you on this other car. So it's probably a Chinese. Doesn't mean it has to say anything in Chinese on the back. S7, the old S7. Anyway. I thought I've walked over there before. This is all blocked off. Like I said, I don't want to get close to the road. Anyway, I'm not doing a good job of going to news. I'm just chatting because it's Sunday. Okay. Tariffs. I said tariffs. That was the last thing I left off with. Sorry about this. I'm going on tangents, you guys. So let's talk a little bit more about Lavrov. His talk was actually lengthy too. He was talking about a reporter. This is actually the same theme I was just going on. I'm going off about this terrible crap that the Ukrainian government is doing to their own people, with this indoctrination. And of course, this is going on in a lot of places. It's going on in the Baltic states and many, many, many places. So I can keep on going. Makes you wonder what this is all about. Some sort of a metal bar. Makes you wonder. Probably there about 30 years or who knows. It's embedded into the tree. Okay, but yes, he was talking about, and I mentioned this before, when Zelensky, his hatred of Russia, and a reporter once asked Zelensky, what keeps you going? I mean, everything is so terrible. The Russians and everything, it's so terrible. So what drives you? What keeps you going? What encourages you? And Zelensky came out and he said his hatred of Russians. And the reporter said, "Oh, you mean Putin?" "No." He said, "No, all Russians." And obviously, as Lavrov even said, I think that was even on somehow how yesterday, and it's very, very obvious. Very obvious. You all know this for sure. It's this they want to exterminate everything that's Russian. Everything. They want to wipe it off the face of the earth. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to do that. Russia has a big territory, and it's you can call that genocide, and it is genocide. It definitely is genocide. Genocide of the culture, genocide of everything that is Russian. Maybe they will allow a lot of those people to live, or maybe they'll get around and they want to exterminate everybody that has any sort of Russian genetics. And when you think about it in the future, maybe everybody's going to have to submit to a genetics test, and if you have Russian genetics in you, you have to die. You never know. I tell you what, I would not put this past a lot of this stuff that goes on in the world today. Especially, you want to put Zelensky in charge? Well, that's what's going to happen. He's not going to submit to a test, or he's going to have it. He's probably half Russian himself. So, and you look at the leaders of the Soviet Union. This stuff pisses me off so much. And most of them were Ukrainian. The majority of the leaders of the Soviet Union were Ukrainian. And the Ukrainians claimed, they treated us so badly. When, obviously, and there's no denying this, the spoiled child of the Soviet Union spoiled more than any ethnicity, if you want to call it an ethnicity or region, actually, any country or bloc, any Soviet bloc that was spoiled the most. They got most of every single benefit the Soviet Union ever had to offer was Ukraine, more than anything. Stalin gave them huge amounts of lands, took it from other countries and gave it, starting with Vladimir Lenin, the very first leader of the Soviet Union. He gave them huge amounts of territory. People never wanted to be Ukrainian, but no, you are going to be Ukrainian. We're going to make you part of Ukraine. Khrushchev gave them the Crimea. I mean, this goes on. And this country, all these places, the vast majority of Ukraine, I don't know what percentage, maybe 75, 80% of it, never belonged to Ukraine. Ethnically, they're not Ukrainian. They never wanted to be part of it, but it was given to Ukraine, and they treated us so badly, giving us all of this territory, building all of our industries, building factories, giving us jobs and stuff. The Holodomor. Anyway, it's all, it's nothing but fake. It's terrible. When you have a country where everything is based on lies. Everybody has to take care of us. Everybody has to give everything to us because we're the master race. We're more powerful and we're better than you are. So give everything to us. Unfortunately, Mr. Macabre. It's like, I always talk about this personality, Uriah Heep in David Copperfield. Yes, we're so humble. Oh, yes. And at the meantime, they're taking over everything, and then they become the masters of everything. I guess that's how it is, You cheat people, you lie, you do everything. You steal, you kill, you do everything that's in the book until you are the masters and you have control of absolutely everything. So guess what? All of these Western countries, if you really want to push Ukraine to be doing that, they're going to be running you at some point in time. They're running you right now. You know, oh, give us a couple billion, you know. And look at Zelensky, how he came out to the United States. And I'll tell you what, it's not true. He certainly was grateful. He came out and said he was grateful. And he always added to this, but it's not enough. You know, oh, thank you for this and thank you for that, but it's not enough. He would get things virtually free from the United, which was free, as Trump says, giving them all kinds of things free, and then on the next day he'd turn around actually when he'd leave and he'd say, that's not enough, they got to give us even more. And that's how Ukraine has always been. It was like that in the Soviet Union. I heard this many decades ago about Ukraine, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, it's incredible. And how can you actually have a culture that says everybody has to give everything to you and you have to take care of us, and your responsibility on earth is to give everything to us and to take care of this, you know? And like I said, I don't blame the people of Ukraine. That's how the culture has been, you know? It's indoctrination. Anyway, I just get pissed off. Sorry about that. Going into a rant here. Okay, let's talk about Lavrov a little bit more. Yeah, but anyway, Zelensky said everything that keeps him going is hate, you know? And I was told, and this is not, I'm not making this up, I was told a long time ago, I'll tell you what, it was about the year 2000, people here from the Soviet Union, they were telling me, no, you stay away from Ukraine. They were saying all those people are crazy. I don't want to say that the people are crazy there. It is the culture there. It is how this place is. And I tell you, very, very much, sadly, very sadly, is you've got to stay away from those people unless you can get somebody like, say, you need to transfer somebody like Lukashenko there. And Lukashenko, it would take him the rest of his life to try to straighten out that society. And a lot of places I think are absolutely hopeless. Maybe if you go to Lvov, maybe those places are hopeless. And if I were Putin, you know, I would say, damn, you know, Poland, Europe, take it. You can take that area, take it all. Like I said, I don't want to blame all those people there. I don't have any idea. I can't believe that it's the culture there, and maybe they're so indelibly brainwashed, indoctrinated. I don't know. It's very, very sad. Just so you guys all know this stuff. Anyway. So, he said it's not against Putin, it's against all Russians that he hates. He's driven by hatred of all Russians and obviously everything that is Russian, everything, you know. And he wasn't like that before. Lavrov was making the point that he was actually a rational guy. And think about this, he won the election on trying to be fair and trying to ameliorate any problems between that. And a lot of Ukrainians, even people in the parliament, they say this is terrible, we're doing some really terrible stuff. And what was his name? He used to be the advisor of Zelensky. He's even saying that we're going the wrong way. We got to start changing things. You know, our relationship with Russia. Okay. There were massive crowds yesterday. Big, huge rally in favor of the government of Serbia, which is very refreshing. When you see that the establishment, they were having, you know, these big protests or something against the government of Serbia, you know. And I was thinking, oh boy, Serbia, it's not gonna, you know, they're in deep, deep trouble. And Vučić and the Serbian government, they've been holding out. And then at this rally yesterday, I'll tell you what, it could have been over 1 million people, at least hundreds of thousands, there's no doubt. I mean, it looked like Yemen, you know, Yemen, where everybody is rallying in support of Palestine, just like in Bangladesh, where you got millions of people around the world on the side of morality, you know, that they have the moral high ground. They know what's going on, you know, the massacre of Palestinian peoples and things. And it's just like that in Serbia. So I was really happy to see that there's millions of people, or 1 million people or so, in favor of the Serbian government, you know, looking at this establishment, the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, Joe Biden, George Soros, Bill Gates, and all of these people that are not out for nothing but power and money. So, but you know, democracy, not as powerful as people say. We'll see what happens there. And Bernie Sanders, talk about democracy. Bernie Sanders, he's also against Israel, and their domination and what's going on. At least he's talking like that. But, Bernie Sanders, and he's talking about, we had a massive rally. We had 35,000 people, at least what they say. Nobody sits around and counts anyway. And whenever it's anything in favor of, like say the Palestinians, they say thousands, when it's definitely tens of thousands, if not maybe a couple 100,000, but they never say that. They just say hundreds or thousands, and I don't know. Bernie Sanders, he's another guy you got to stay away from. He'll cave in. He caves in. He caved in. He was against Hillary Clinton, and then he caved into Hillary Clinton. Tulsi Gabbard, I wonder what she thinks of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, he finds these good causes, and you're actually tempted to say, well, yeah, this guy's right. I like this guy. He's against corruption and all that. And then you find out, well, he's in bed with the pharmaceutical companies as well. He sells out. He caves in. Old Bernie. What did Trump call him? Crazy Bernie? I would stay away from the guy. I wouldn't back him. You can be in support of some of the things that he talks about, but he caves into everything. I wouldn't mess with the guy. Okay, don't take him seriously is what I wrote here. He talks tough, and then he's in bed with the corrupt establishment as well. I think I was making lots of big pharma, yeah. So, yeah, and since it's Sunday, I wanted to put out this message, so instead of looking at old Bernie Sanders, him talking tough and the things he says, and he gets up in these rallies, what did Jesus tell us? Know them by their fruits. Look at actually what Bernie Sanders does. He always caves in. He's never doing the things that we actually want him to be doing. He always caves in, and the results, he doesn't bring any results. It's always negative. It's always on the negative side. Always supports like Hillary Clinton and everything like that. Wow. Yeah, let's see. But at least Trump, Trump, for example, his tariffs, they've done negative things, but at least he's trying to ameliorate that. For example, he does this thing, the tariffs, they don't include laptops and cell phones and all that sort of stuff. But, a lot of people say those are going to be added again at some point in time. Anyway, he's trying to increase the production of the United States, but he's not so bad. Like I said, even if I don't like a lot of stuff that Trump does and things, unfortunately, he is the better choice. Except it just sickens me when you look at him supporting all this stuff going on in the Middle East, bombing the Yemenites, who definitely have the moral high ground. These people are vastly more moral than any politicians in the United States. They don't like to see injustice and people being killed. They are disgusted about what Israel is doing to the Palestinians, and rightly so. So many other people, I tell you what, I would back the Houthis immediately if it's compared to the United States government and things like that. They're a lot more moralistic, like I said, even if they maybe cannot win. Anyway, yes. Yeah. And I wrote here also a note, like look at these leaders in the UK or France or Germany or Ukraine. They're, I don't know, most of this, they're just a bunch of corrupt people and screwing over their own countries and their own people. It's really strange. Why doesn't that happen over here in Belarus? Why? And then you got people here that don't like the government here, and it's like you don't see all this stuff, and you see these people, I think that are like, maybe not so much on Sundays, but there are people picking, this is expensive, and the taxes aren't any higher here than they are over there, but you got lots of people picking up garbage, planting flowers, cleaning the place, all sorts of stuff. And then look at Berlin, weeds growing everywhere, garbage around and stuff, and they bring in far, far, far more money in Berlin, probably just Berlin alone, than the entire country of Belarus. It's undeniable. But yet look at the state of the place. I guess they got to give all that money into the wars and pocket in the politicians. And anyway, it's directed in places it shouldn't go, putting up migrants in first-class hotels everywhere. Oh, boy. You see where their priorities were. Know them by their fruits, as Jesus said. So look at the governments over there and make sure, well, why are they doing that? Anyway, okay. Okay, what is this? Anyway, I've talked a lot about this stuff already. And yeah, U.S. keeps bombing Yemen, and Israel bombing and killing mostly children. It's like I said, it's just sick. And I was going to say, like, what is the result? What is the result of bombing and killing all of these people in Palestine? And of course, he's getting the whole world against him, but Netanyahu doesn't care because he knows how to buy politicians. So he doesn't care about democracy and what the people of the world think about Israel, massacring innocent people and children particularly. He doesn't care about that, because he can buy the politicians of everywhere, and he can use leverage. And he's got the United States, and if you don't do what Israel wants you to do, then he'll get the United States to bomb you. It's similar to what you're seeing right now in Iran. The Iranians don't like to see what's going on there, and it's not that Netanyahu wants to bomb Iran because of that. I think a lot of this is because they want to dominate the Middle East, and they don't like to see that the Iranians are actually very intelligent people, and he wants to keep them down. He wants to keep everybody in check. Egypt, it doesn't matter. They want to dominate everything. So there's probably a lot more to it than that. And of course, Eretz Israel is the goal, to keep increasing territory. Again, here we go, territory again. And they're going to take over Gaza. They're expanding there. Anyway. Okay. Trump said, I'm going to be ending with this one. Trump said that Ukraine has to put up or shut up, apparently. And I guess maybe he's talking about this mineral deal. And a lot of people are putting out in the press, oh, he's frustrated with what was it? And they're trying to make him think that it is Russia that is stalling on this. And yesterday I was talking, I think I even had the title of the video was stalling, that not Stalin, but Zelensky is stalling, and he is stalling. And who knows what the whole reason for that is? And Trump, he wants to get somewhere, and Trump, I said he's driven by his success more than he is by money. And success means a lot of the time money. You get more money for the United States, and he's increasing the trade deficit, I guess. I guess things are not getting better at all, in the U.S. as much as he comes out and he says so. I don't know, maybe it's a prelude, maybe it will get better soon, maybe that it'll get worse before it gets better. I can't tell you, I don't know. So I'm not like, I understand certain little things about economics, and a lot of us do, and sometimes we looking at little things and ignoring the big things, or maybe we're looking at the big things and think that they are important, and it turns out that the little things actually turned out to be more important. I don't know, tariffs and all this kind of crap. Who knows what's going to happen? As a matter of fact, Trump doesn't know. Nobody really knows, and they've all even come out and admitted it. Nobody knows for sure. Peter Schiff, I think he was saying that there's going to be inflation, and Trump again came out and said, oh, no inflation. But it's very early. He just called these things. It's very early. There's going to be inflation. I don't see that there's any way around it. There's no way around that there's going to be inflation in the United States. And he'll probably say there is no inflation even when there is inflation. Look at these hands. And, Trump is, unfortunately, like I said, he's not exactly honest either. Maybe his lies are a lot smaller than the huge, huge lies that a lot of the other politicians come up with. But anyway, like I said, who knows what's going to happen? And, and Trump, what he said about Ukraine, and I thought Ukraine didn't have any cards. You've got no cards. You've got no cards. Well, Trump, Ukraine is still delaying. They still haven't signed anything. And when was that meeting? And they were supposed to sign this before that time. And Besant keeps going. He went over there, and Zelensky's given them the cold shoulder, and it's, thus far it looks like Zelensky's in control, not Trump. I don't know. Maybe that's going to irk Trump, but, Trump comes out like a tough guy, like, I'm going to slam you so hard that you're going to be seeing stars for months afterwards. And then and Ukraine is just walking all over him. It's like Zelensky saying, well, take the little finger, just stick this, sit on this, in so many words. That's what Zelensky's doing. He's not signing any deals or nothing. And Zelensky, and you talk about the art of the deal, I don't know. Zelensky's not going to get what he wants. Obviously, what he wants is, in any part of a deal, he wants the United States to join in the war and attack Russia. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know. Zelensky, I think he thinks he's far, far better than he actually is. I don't know. And he runs around in a green t-shirt and, oh, Mr. Macabre, we're so humble, Mr. Macabre, oh, we're so humble. I don't know. He still thinks that he's going to get the United States to join in and start going after Russia and make Russia look bad. And he keeps on with his propaganda. Russia's disobeying the ceasefire. When, of course, Ukraine does it. I think, what was it? How many times did they do it? Yesterday? Maybe it was 7 times they bombed and that's their main goal is now. The exact thing that they signed the treaty on, their main goal is to disobey the treaty at all costs. It's just incredible. But yet they can get away with it. Israel gets away with anything they want, and Ukraine say, well, hey, we'll do you one better. We'll get away with anything we want. Gosh, I don't know. So in a way, Trump is looking like a real patsy too, especially with Ukraine. And Ukraine is walking all over Donald Trump at the moment, Zelensky. And Zelensky, I don't know, maybe he's going to write his own book, The Art of the Deal. And, look at him. He's getting filthy rich. Trump even came out and admitted it. This guy's the best salesman in the world. He just walks away with billions and billions and billions of dollars, I don't know. It makes you really wonder. Of course, they're going to lose the war, but Zelensky has been very, very, very successful for his own personal things, and he is getting a lot of other people rich. And as they say, that's the number one place where their Rolls-Royce is selling their top of the line cars is in Ukraine. So a lot of wealth going into Ukraine, and lots of money. And I said before, it's on a different level. And I was just talking here about a lot of this corruption and how Ukraine works. It's a country you really kind of want to stay away from. And a lot of people are talking about all of the human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, women trafficking. I'll tell you what, there's so much corruption. Ukraine is run on corruption. Their GDP is run on corruption. And so it makes you really wonder, they have these numbers on GDP. Well, what is, if you start totaling on all of this, what do you call it, black money, all of this hidden money, this stuff, behind closed doors, makes you really wonder how much money is actually flushed through Ukraine. It's probably beyond our imaginations. And I'm telling you, and it probably will never, ever be disclosed. I don't know, not really. But it doesn't matter so much anyways. But, thinking about how much money does Zelensky actually have, and they stopped, like I said, they stopped reporting it. One time he had very quickly gone to over 2 billion, and he was richer than Donald Trump, and then it was up to 5 billion, and they started saying, this is looking pretty bad. So they stopped at 5 billion, and then when somebody was starting to say that he had $10 billion, I mean, this is his personal wealth, 10 billion. I don't know if this includes his assets or just his cash, or what. I think maybe it's all of his assets combined, and I think it was up to 10 billion, and they said, okay, we're shutting this down, so that they made sure that, it's not mentioned on how much money Zelensky actually has. And I'm telling you, this was way over a year ago, and he was getting like more and more billions every quarter of the year. So it makes you really wonder. Maybe you can even talk, he might be up to Elon Musk right now. He might be into hundreds of billions of dollars by this time. And and somebody actually asked a question yesterday when I put out in this one thing about a video, 10% for the big guy. And it really makes you wonder. I don't know, is Zelensky getting 10%? Is he getting 30%? When you talk about like 5 billion coming in, what's that, half of a billion? You know, he just puts right into his pocket. He's got huge amounts of businesses all over. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling when you look at this guy's his own personal financial empire. He owns the majority of mining stocks and the mining companies in South Africa, which is a big mining country. You know, we're talking diamonds and things like that too, and gold. You know, big minerals in South Africa, and he owns it. He bought into that, and all of his tourist things, his casinos, wineries. He owns the media, at least in Ukraine, maybe in other places. You know, lots of places in the UK. He has at least one big house in Florida we all know of, and a casino in Cyprus. I mentioned that, and houses in Florida. I mean, who knows? You know, those are the places that we know about. Well, what are the things that they kept secret that we don't know about? Because he does it in other people's names. A lot of times it's like companies. Some people do the backtracking. Like I think what was it? Was the casino? It was a company. It was put into a company's name, and it turns out that the company is owned by his wife. And obviously he put that, you know, he's doing proxies by proxies by proxies to trying to hide how much money he has. But when you're raking in all of this money, you know, I mean, look at he doesn't even have the money to buy a suit. You know, he's wearing these green t-shirts. Oh, we're so humble, Mr. Macabre. But wow. Anyway, I'm just shooting off my own opinions right now, and a lot of you guys probably have the same sort of opinions, and this is Sunday. You know, like I said, not a lot of people be watching this, but the people that do watch my videos, at least, I'm just commenting on how we really know, how the world actually works. And anyway, I just want to put that out. And so, like I said, it's the end of the video. Very long video. Some of you guys like the long videos. I did a lot of my homework yesterday so I can put out another long video. And anyway, appreciate all of you guys watching, and feel free to leave a comment. It's fine. If you even want to tell what things you like, what things you don't like, but you have to use some tact when you do that. I'd appreciate that as well. So, and I hope you guys liked the picture of my Russian teacher yesterday. So anyway, okay, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.